Welcome to the Princeton Podcast, where we talk about upcoming events, news, and local businesses. This is Princeton. Play here, stay here.
Before we get started today, just a reminder to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're also recording on YouTube, so be sure to subscribe at This is Princeton MN.
Hey, thank you everyone for tuning in today. Today's podcast is brought to you by Princeton Public Schools. I am Zach Kitzman, here with Mary Pat Note and Kim Young. Kim, what do we got going on this week?
All right, so for events this week, we've got March 29th, the senior dance from 1 to 4 at the VFW. So that's been brought back again, which is really fun. On March 31st is the band blast at Princeton High School at 7:30 p.m. That is like the best day, the greatest day, I think they call it. And that'll be bands from middle school and high school all playing in the gym. April 1st is I Love the 80s to Death, which is a murder mystery party at the VFW. So hopefully you got your tickets for that, because that'll be a fun event coming up at the VFW.
Hey, we're back. I gotta get my giggles out during that commercial break. I was making fun of Zach for doing the hey, and I said I was going to cut in and say today's podcast is brought to you by Fat Albert. Oh my gosh. All right. So get back to business here. Today we're going to be talking to all those high school students out there and their parents who are trying to figure out what they want to do with the rest of their lives. Whether it be college or straight to the workforce, we're going to talk about different paths that we all took to get where we are today. Both of our guests, along with myself, Kim, and Zach, all graduated from Princeton High School and all took different paths to get to the careers we are in today. Our first guest is Heather Sorensen, who is a teacher at the high school and also the Youth Skills Training Coordinator, the Link Advisor. Got to turn the page, Heather. Wow. National Honor Society Advisor. She is going to talk to us today about something new the high school has been working on for a number of years and implemented this year called the Career Academies. Welcome, Heather.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here. So at the high school, we currently are doing this thing called Career Academies.
And is it new this year?
No.
Implemented? I wasn't sure.
It's not
implemented.
new.
Right.
That's a really good question, actually. It's not new. We've been working on it, I want to say, since the initial planning process, probably 5 years. Mm-hmm. And then I would say really working in the high school to make it take shape for 3 years now. But I would say it's very new to the students.
Right. Mm-hmm. And to the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it seems like, we've heard Ben has talked a lot about Career Academies. He comes to a lot of the chamber meetings, and he's always advocating for these Career Academies. And I feel like finally now this year, it's really being pushed out there, and we are hearing about it, and we're seeing now on social media the experiences that the high school kids are having, and it's really neat. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we have 6 career academies, and those were developed through a lot of brainstorming, I suppose, and we kind of settled on this idea of following the Department of Education and their career wheel that they've created. And so the 6 career academies, I would say, are very all-encompassing. Any career that a student would want to go into falls into one of the academies, and then we have electives that fit into each of those academies. And we even break down our academies into pathways as well, which is just a more narrowed focus on a career path, a career destination.
So, for example, if a student finds interest in agriculture, so what would you tell them if they came to you as the advisor?
So if a student was interested in agriculture, I would definitely advise them to take some courses that fall into our Agriculture and Natural Resources Academy. And we have so many course offerings that Jessie Lubke's offers at the high school that would help a student, I suppose, explore agriculture. And at the high school, I don't want to say that we want the students to choose a pathway and stick to it, because I think we all know that oftentimes our paths change as we go through our lives. And so the academies allow the students to explore that pathway. And then if they want to, because they have a lot of opportunities for electives at the high school, they can move to a different academy or a different pathway if they realize, agriculture isn't quite what I was thinking it was. But they can learn from Mrs. Lepke's and her classes whether that's the right thing for them.
Which is just as important, I think, to learn. We were actually talking about this earlier before we went on the air, that sometimes this wasn't available when we were in high school, and so to be able to find out what you think you like and you don't is just as important, and will save a lot of money, through college or whatever, if you can find out something you thought you were interested in but maybe not.
Absolutely. And one of our focuses at the high school and with the Career Academies is giving the students the opportunity to get a lot of hands-on experiences and also connection with our businesses in the community. And that can be through, having guest speakers come in from our various businesses, to tours to the businesses, job shadows, but also we have what we call our youth skills training experiences, which is students can take a credit-bearing course in which they get to do an internship. And so they can get some real-life hands-on experience and realize, either this is exactly what I want to do or absolutely not. Mm-hmm. This is not what I want to do.
So what are the 6 academies that students can choose?
Okay, so our 6 academies we have the Business Management and Marketing Academy, Information Systems, Communications, and Art Academy. There's an Engineering, Manufacturing, and Technology Academy, the Health Sciences Academy, the Agriculture and Natural Resources Academy, and then the Human Services Academy.
Wow.
And
That's
one thing,
awesome.
that you'd find too, when you look at those academies in detail, it's not necessarily exactly, they're all, like you said, it's all encompassing. So you're going to find something within one of those, and some of, let's say human resources, or something that most businesses have a human resources department. It might be within.
Yes, that would fall into the Business Management and Marketing Academy.
But you could also work in, let's say, health services in HR.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
So they kind of mix that way too.
We definitely find that, Fairview, for example, they have people working in jobs that fall into almost all, if not all, of these academies. So students could get an experience at Fairview in many different areas, not just health sciences.
Okay. And so how would a student go about starting this process? Is it more like a 9th grade? Is that ideal?
So we advise in 9th grade, that's really where a lot of exploration is going to happen. And we do have a situation where students don't get that many elective options in their 9th grade year. Just there's not a lot of room in their schedule. There's a lot of core classes that they have to take. So the ones that they do take, usually they're going to take courses in lots of different academies and then kind of find their niche. Maybe they find, I really like industrial tech classes, so I'm going to take more woods classes or welding classes. Then probably in 10th grade, they're going to start doing that focus. And we would say that in junior and senior year, that's where likely they're going to find that home, I suppose, in an academy.
So I have a question about, so these classes that are under these academies, they are more like an elective?
Yes,
Okay.
they are the elective. So, of course, we have the core classes that all students have to take, and we don't put those into any one of the academies. Many of them would fall into multiple academies. It's our electives that fall into the
Very
academies.
cool. Mm-hmm. That is such a nice option. It's high school is so different.
Yeah.
From when we were in school.
Starting to get outside of the classroom a little bit more and
Yeah.
doing the hands-on.
Yeah, I have students doing some really awesome experiences at some of our businesses. One student in particular, our kind of guinea pig student, I suppose, Cooper, he started at Glen Metalcraft, and he started there a year ago and has continued for, I suppose now he's starting on his 4th trimester there. And
Wow.
he loves it, absolutely loves it. And when I talk to the people at Glenn, they say that they are excited for him to continue on there, and he definitely wants to continue his career there after he graduates.
So in that example, so does he work, or does he go there and work during school hours?
He does. He leaves sixth hour and goes 3 days a week to Glenn Metalcraft, and he works there for a few hours. So he works both during the school day and afterwards. And yeah, he is doing a job that typically 16 and 17-year-olds can't do, but we, through approval with the Department of Labor, are able to get our students into some of those positions. So I think that also helps out our businesses when they're trying to find workers.
Oh, absolutely. And then, they're probably hoping he stays on.
Yes.
But so he is getting credit.
He's
high
getting
school
credit.
and he's getting paid, and he's finding that he is loving this.
Yes.
And what a great thing.
It's a win-win-win.
Yeah.
Because Glenn Metalcraft too
is.
is, especially in a time when it's so hard to find employees and quality employees. This is a great situation for them.
Yeah,
Also,
it is a win-win-win. It's a win for Cooper, it's a win for Glenn Metalcraft, and it's a win for high school for, having these awesome educational experiences outside of the classroom.
Yeah, and I think some of these businesses that, in the trades and in manufacturing, they prefer to start from the bottom because then they're the ones training them. So they're learning exactly the way that they want to, and there's no retraining, and
Right.
so then there's an incentive to keep them, which is a win for the employee.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of our businesses in Princeton, we see people who start and they work their way up the ladder and are able to find some really awesome careers in the community.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue into our next piece of the of our podcast.
yeah, we wanted to ask you about your path personally, Heather. You were a graduate of Princeton High School, and how you came to be teaching and where you are. If you knew, right through high school, I'm going to be a teacher, this is what I'm going to do, and you went and did it, or how that worked for you.
Yeah, so I grew up in Princeton. I lived in Princeton. I was born in Malacca, but my parents lived in Princeton, and I grew up here. I loved living in Princeton, everything about it. I love being a part of this community. I felt as though I have actual family here, but the community is a part of my family too. And then I had awesome teachers in Princeton. And then after I graduated, I went to Concordia College in Moorhead. And did I know that I wanted to be a teacher? I knew I wanted to do one of two things, either teach, and I always knew high school, or else a broadcast journalist. So this should be right up my alley, but I'm still nervous.
And here you are. I also want to mention, though, for alumni out there listening, this is Heather Vetters that we're speaking to us.
This
That's
is
her
Heather
maiden name.
Vetters, 1994, so it was a little while ago. So I went to Concordia, and I decided that I wanted to become a teacher, really kind of because I knew that I didn't want to go that as far away from home as I might need to if I was going to become a broadcast journalist. I knew that family was important to me, so I wanted to be around this area. So I decided on teaching, and I taught in New Ulm for a year and White Bear Lake for 2 years. Then I actually had 1 year in which I worked as a bankruptcy analyst for Wells Fargo. Kim's like, I didn't know that about you.
I didn't know that either. For some reason, I thought you came right back to Princeton.
No, they had budget cuts in White Bear Lake, and I liked my job in White Bear Lake, and I liked teaching, but I really didn't like the politics of education, and I didn't like the fact that I was cut, so I was done. I wasn't going to do it anymore.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, so I was a bankruptcy analyst, which, sitting in a cubicle is very different from having a classroom. And then my mom called me one day and said, there's a social studies opening in Princeton, Heather, you have to apply. And I did, and now I've been here this is my 21st year teaching in Princeton, and I'm so glad that my mom called me that day and asked me to come back. I guess. So I've been teaching some of the classes that I teach, college government, college psych, and regular psych, and for all 21 years. But then this year I saw this opportunity to try something new, and it's kind of the best of both worlds because I still get to teach. and then do this youth skills training job where I get to oversee the academies and work with businesses and with the chamber, and I've really enjoyed that.
You're very good at it.
Yeah, you're doing a great job because the community is absolutely learning about the process of this. And like I said, we've been hearing about it for, so many years, and now it's out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's one of my goals too, just the awareness piece, make sure everyone knows we're doing it. Our businesses so they can get connected, but also the community so they can see all the positive things that are happening in Princeton.
How many schools around us are doing something like this? Is this a popular thing? Is this around the surrounding schools, or are they doing these career academies as well?
Yeah, I would say it's a pretty popular thing. Hopefully it's not just a trend, but it's become kind of a trendy thing. I think the school that we learned about first was a school in Nashville. So it's not just in Minnesota, but across the country where we're seeing career academies and a focus on having students have these hands-on experiences and focus on their careers in high school. Around this area, there are some schools. Most schools are doing it very differently, though, which is very interesting. Not all schools have 6 academies. Some only focus on our career and tech education and only have academies in those areas. Some schools aren't doing the academies, but they are doing the internships. And some schools haven't jumped on the bandwagon yet.
Well, I saw I think it was a chamber, must have been a chamber function of some sort. I was up in the Brainerd Lakes area, and there was a speaker that talked about this. But it was sort of launched not by the schools, which I thought was really interesting. It was more the business side. So they got the businesses on board, and then each business would have to go through quite a rigorous, process to be able to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And then from there, it was kind of paired with the students. So it's just really interesting all the different ways to do it.
It is. And myself and other teachers and administrators at the school, we meet with a lot of the other schools around the area to see how they're doing things. And it's interesting to see the differences. Shakopee schools use the phrase time, talents, and treasures. They want to get the time from the businesses, their talents, and also their treasures. So getting a little bit of money to help them with things too. So I know we've kind of been thinking, how can we get these 3 things too?
Right, yeah, very important.
It's a nice incentive for the kids or the high schoolers too, like to learn, get the credits, get a paying job, and like just that adds that bit of responsibility too for them and understanding what a workforce is like on the job. I think it's all around really good.
Yeah, I do want to say not all of our internships are paid. Some are, but not all of them. So we have some students doing some internships at the school. For example, one student is doing an internship with our athletic department, and he doesn't get paid for that position, but we definitely have some paid and some that are not paid.
But even like Zach, I think you were talking too about the soft skills, so having that experience to learn how to, be professional, talk to a professional, show up on time.
Yeah. It's a learning curve. I know, starting any new job as being 14 all the way up to 16 or whenever you start working, but that's also a huge learning curve from just picking up your clothes to now showing up to work and clocking in, or like you said, the responsibilities that you have to be accountable for.
Right. The Princeton School District, we have our Habits of a Tiger, which are the soft skill things that we want to teach our students, and the district is focusing on those habits from pre-K all the way through senior year. So some of those things are, being responsible and being an empathetic citizen. And so things that we want all people to, skills we want everyone to have when they leave high school, that can fit in for any career. But then also the hard skills, the industry-specific skills we want them to learn too.
Quick question. Are you able to, say you try one, are you able to switch in between as you go, and do you have to wait every few months or sections?
So changing academies, certainly, at any point in time, and really the requirement for being in an academy, and this is something that we're we're seeing some growing pains as we go through these first couple of years. We had some pretty high requirements to be in an academy, and we've realized that that was kind of hurting the program, so we've changed the requirements a little bit. And all it really is to be in an academy is, for next year, is that you take 3 classes in the academy, and then to graduate with the academy, 3 courses in a specific pathway. And students have many more opportunities for electives than just 3, so certainly they can change at any point in time.
Cool.
Love it.
And students actually, they can do the YST experiences or the internships anytime during their junior or senior year, and the requirement is just 1 trimester, so they could get multiple internships in as well. We haven't had that yet, but I think one day we certainly could have that happen.
All right. She's calling you out, whoever you are. You got to do it.
I am.
Well, good. Heather, we invite you to stick around because we're going to continue after a quick break to talk more about the different paths that students might take and not to be feeling so much pressure to make a decision for the rest of their lives, by the end of this school year.
Yeah, sounds great.
All right, so we'll be right back.
Do you remember your answer as a child to the common question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Our students have an opportunity to explore and narrow in on their interests with our Tiger Career Academies. Students can freely explore career and college options before racking up student debt. With 6 career academies, Human Services Academy, Agriculture and Natural Resources Academy, Health Science Academy, Engineering, Manufacturing, and Technology Academy, Information Systems, Communications and Art Academy, Business Management and Administration Academy. Each with multiple pathways and 72 trimester class slots, students have many opportunities to explore and prepare for their future. Our goal is for every student to graduate with an industry credential, certification, workplace experience, college credit, internship, or mentorship. Connecting their learning to outside experiences, students apply new skills with meaning and relevance to the field. Go to www.isd477.org/academies to find your calling.
All right. Our next guest graduated from Princeton High School. He left for a few years for the service and came back to Princeton to raise his family and work here. Kim and I happen to be a member of his family. Welcome, my dad, Art Scarlett.
Thank you.
Hi, Dad.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, Dad. Can you tell us about your path from high school to the service to eventually the president of Bremer Bank?
Well, yes. I graduated from Princeton in 1967. I started working in the dry cleaning industry in Princeton. There were 2 dry cleaners in town at that time, and I worked for Russ Fisher. That business was located where the current post office sits today. So I started there when I was 15 years old, I believe, and I worked there through graduation. And then I started working the year after graduation. I decided to go to Bemidji State. And so I love playing baseball. And so that was one of the main reasons that I chose Bemidji, was to go play baseball. And I did. I played baseball there for a year and a half, 2 years, and got some experience at the college baseball level.
I think they still got a really good baseball program going on
today. You think about Bemidji and you don't think baseball.
Right.
You think hockey.
Yeah, nowadays.
But yes, they did. They had some great coaching back then, and I believe they still do. But after a couple years of going to school and realizing that I was going to school to participate in sports, I realized that probably wasn't fair to my parents because college is expensive. And so I decided at that point that baseball wasn't going to be my career going forward, and I chose the Air Force. So I joined the Air Force in 1969, and I spent 4 years in the Air Force playing some sports in the Air Force also.
Basketball.
Change to basketball.
That's another story. Anyway, while I was in the service, I got married in 1969, and that was the year I joined the Air Force. I went to basic training, and then I was transferred to Colorado, where I went to school in Colorado. And in Colorado, that's where my wife and I got married. And we spent the first year of my career in Colorado, and then I was transferred to Arizona. So I spent 3 years in Arizona. And so what happened during that time, the bank president in Princeton then was Clifford Erickson. And Clifford and his wife, they would come to Arizona in the winter for 2 or 3 weeks every winter. And the last year I was in the service, he called me and asked me if I'd like to come over and have dinner with them, my wife and I. And so we did. And after dinner, we sat down and he said, "Art, how would you like to go to work at the bank?" And it just kind of took me by surprise because, for one thing, math was not my strong suit in high school by any means. And I thought, well, he's offering me a job. And I really wanted to go back into the dry cleaning industry. Actually, I really wanted to own a dry cleaning business in town. And I had pursued that. And I'd gone to the bank and talked to them about financing. And that was probably the year before I was offered this position. And realized that it was going to be quite difficult. I mean, I didn't have any money. We had started our family out in Arizona. And so my wife and I talked and decided, yeah, we'll try it. So I was discharged from the Air Force in 1973. Came back to Princeton. We lived in a couple different places in town, and my first job at the bank was basically being a janitor. I worked down in the storeroom and cleaned the storeroom probably for the first 4 weeks of my career. That's what I did. Mm-hmm. After that,
you were what, 22? About 22?
Probably 22, yeah.
Okay.
After that, I was promoted from cleaning the storeroom to the bookkeeping department. So I worked in the bookkeeping department for a few years, and from there, I became a teller, a lobby teller, and a drive-up teller. After that, I became a retail lender, and then I was also an ag lender, and I did some business banking. And then after that, I had the opportunity to manage, and I was working under a great guy. Wes Gerkink was the president of the bank at that time. And lo and behold, a few years later, they named me president of the bank. So for my last 15 years, I was bank president and manager. And the bank was, when I first started, was Princeton State Bank. That was owned by a family called the Barton family. Great experience at that time. I mean, it was just a wonderful place to work. They sold the bank to a small holding company of 3 individuals, all from out of town, worked for big banks, big businesses. They changed the name from Princeton State Bank to Princeton Bank. They owned the bank for about 10 years, and then they sold the bank to what it is today, Bremer Bank. So I worked for 3 different companies. I worked there for 43 years, and I worked in the same building for 43 years.
Starting out in the storeroom.
Sweeping floors all the way up to president.
Yeah, and I just think that's such a great story for students to hear, that sometimes that's the career path. sometimes you land in a job that you didn't think you'd be in, and then you're there, and you enjoy it, and you just work your way up.
Well, one of the things about a retail business is that you get to work with people day in and day out, and there are different experiences that are brought to you every single day, and different decisions that you have to make every single day with these different people. And that's one of the things that I really appreciated about that business. It was never, ever a boring business. So, yeah.
It's very different. I mean, for one thing, there is no bookkeeping department at that building anymore.
Right. When I first started there, we had 63 employees, and I think today they maybe have 9.
Wow.
And it's
60.
and it's 10, 15 times bigger than it was back then. So
Right. That's interesting.
that's technology.
Yep, that's technology.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Dad. Well, I have several for off air. I'm stuck on the dry cleaning piece. I don't know anything about that. But back to Bremer, I remember when I was in high school, several of my classmates worked at Bremer. Did you work with the high school? Did the bank have a connection with the high school at that time?
Yes, we did. And I don't know if it's still the same today, but it was called School to Work program. And Ginger Glenn was very instrumental in starting this program. Her and her husband owned Glenn Metalcraft back at that time. And so she's actually the one that really fine-tuned the program. And yes, we would take interns from the school that might be interested in the financial world, and they'd come actually, just like Cooper is doing today, they'd come to work the last hour or two of school and work until the bank closed every day. And there was programs through the state of Minnesota where we could actually apply for a program that would actually pay these students. And I don't know if that's still around today or not.
Kind of a version on different, more of a grant situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
We don't currently access that program at all, but I have heard rumblings from others that maybe some other school districts have been accessing some funds that maybe one day we'll be able to as well.
Yeah, that would be nice.
So, the nice piece of that is that it did, when you talk about some of the soft, what did you call them?
Soft skills.
Some of the soft skills, for dressing appropriately, for one thing. Going to school,
Hygiene.
normally they come to school with the caps on backwards and
Right.
blah, 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 blah. Well, when they came to the bank, they had to dress appropriately. We went through the interview process, the application process. I would call the school and ask for their transcript, and so I would review that transcript with them. One of the things that I would look at was the number of days that they may be tardy, and tell them how important it is that when they're supposed to be at work at 2 o'clock, we expect you to be there at 1:45, not 2:15.
Listen up, my children.
Yeah, can you have a conversation with your grandkids, Dad?
We might need you to come into the high school as well.
Yeah, exactly.
That's Jake and Cece. Dom, you're good.
So again, the opportunities that present themselves at a bank are not just the financial part of it, but the bookkeeping, the accounting part of it. There's just the management part of it, the human resources part of it, all of that. I mean, that's all part of this business. So there's many different avenues that these individuals, these kids can take a look at that might interest them. And it just gives them a little bit of a taste for what that might look like as far as they're concerned. How interested am I doing this? So I just thought that was a great program.
Well, and I know when I was in high school too, you came in and taught a kind of, I don't know what you called it, but it was how to balance your checkbook, how to.
I did that.
Yeah.
I did that to all the 8th grade classes.
Oh, it was middle school, junior high.
You did high school sometime, maybe not the checkbook thing, but with Becky Cartwright?
I did high school after I did the 8th grade. When I realized 8th grade wasn't the appropriate learning level for me to be talking to these kids at. So it was much better received at the high school level. But yeah, it was simple things like starting a budget. How do you do that? Balancing a checkbook. How do you establish credit? What's good credit? What's bad credit? How does that affect your credit score? Those are just, and I think even today, that is such worthwhile information. I would love to go into the schools, and sit down with classes and just talk to them about those kinds of things. I know it's changed a lot since I was in school, but
Art, I'm writing your name down right now for a guest speaker.
Yep.
but it is important. Those are just those are values that you need, no matter what occupation you get into. Simple little things like that.
Well, even talking about interest, when two of my boys are in college, and when you're going to take out a student loan, you're required to watch a video that talks about how you repay it and when you repay it. And Ryan was just kind of like playing the video, doing other things. Caleb was playing the video and getting angry. What do you mean I have to pay interest? I mean, he was like, I have to pay more than I took. Yes, you do. Caleb, they're giving you money for you to use, and that's what you have to do to pay it back. And he was angry about that. And so they both actually tried not to, to take out few loans. But yeah, he was just shocked. He couldn't believe that he had to pay extra.
That is something that we teach them in our college and career exploration course, and they are amazed and their eyes open a little bit wider when they learn what all is involved in student loans.
Yeah, I remember. I'm sure you will remember this quite well, Dad. I would get a car, and of course I'd promise to make my own payments. I had a job, and so we'd go and we'd get the car, and I'd make a payment, and then I would want a different car. So then I said, well, I'm just going to sell it, and then with the money that I sell it for, I'm going to buy a new car. And then it just did not, you'd say, well, you have that loan to pay off. I'm like, but no, I'm going to sell the car and use the money. And you'd say, but you have that loan to pay off. And I just was like, what are you talking about? I get so mad.
Just didn't register.
Now I know.
Sorry. Go ahead, Zach. I thought you were going to say something. So what was your path?
So all of us have graduated then from Princeton? Is that
Yes.
right?
And in fact, I was going to mention too that Mary and I were kind of looking at the school district. We were going through all the employees, and we came up with, I think, almost 70.
Yeah.
Almost 70 between staff, coaches, and school board members that graduated from Princeton and work in the school district. So I think that says a lot about, right now, that says a lot about our school district, about living here, learning here, and then working here. And then all of us sitting at this table, same thing.
Yeah, and I think just to add on to that before Zach gets into his path, I was thinking about this after our conversation, that a lot of teachers that moved in here that were younger teachers, so 40 years ago, 50 years ago, they chose to stay and they raised their families here, and their kids are all graduating from Princeton or have graduated, and many of those kids have decided to come back and raise their families here. And it's a really cool cycle how it works here in this town, this great little town of Princeton.
Yeah, and I think this podcast idea all came about with, Mary and I both have seniors this year, and my senior thinks he knows what he wants to go into and major in, but it's stressing him out that he doesn't know what job that's going to be. And I've been trying to explain to him it's okay. It's okay not to know. And that's kind of how I thought, if we could all, talk about our paths and how we got where we are, whether it's college, whether it's not college, and changing paths, and you thought you were going to go one direction and you didn't. You found out you didn't like the cubicle setting with the bankruptcy. And so I just want to emphasize to students out there that it's okay not to know. And it feels like a lot of pressure, but it's okay.
Even for some parents, too, not to put so much pressure on kids to figure out what they want to do. I know that was a lot of kids' complaints, or my friends' complaints in school when they were in junior year, senior year, that they had so much pressure on their shoulders and felt like they needed to know what they needed to do by the time they were done. And it was like, we don't know. Like, we just don't know. We have to try new things and try different jobs, or like learn these people's skills and what we don't like. And so there's a lot of things that, but I also want to remind parents too that your kids don't always have to know exactly what they are going to be doing. Just set them up the best way possible to succeed in the jobs, and the basic skills will come, and they'll figure out what they don't like and what they do like.
And that's what's great about these academies,
Mm-hmm.
to give them that opportunity.
Yeah.
I graduated in 2014, and I think I took a year off and then went to Alex Tech and went to school for law enforcement. But in between then, in those summers, I had worked at the Hop and Shield Farm, milking cows. I had worked in construction doing concrete, and then I worked at Greenscape doing all sorts of landscaping. So I was trying different jobs even as I was going to school to like really solidify, like, okay, do I like any of these trades? Is there something I can learn? And as I went through the academy, graduated that in 2016, and then there were some jobs that they were recommending, like, you needed a bachelor's for. And I struggled really hard with that. I was like, I've learned so much in this academy, and it was a skills academy, so it was all hands-on training. We had the best teachers, like, in the country, and, like, everything we did was super to the point. It was no, like, fluff. There was nothing that you didn't need to know. Everything that you needed to know, you knew. And the skills were trained, like, with you. It was all, like, it was basically boot camp. Like, we all had uniforms. We had formation. So I wanted to get a job in Duluth, and they're like, you need a bachelor's degree, like, to even apply. And I was like, well, okay. I'm like, I need a job also, so having to pay for college. So then went to Sherburne County, and they were they're hiring correctional officers, and I've heard from many different officers that were on the road. They said that would be your best start to learn, especially as like a younger, like I was still a kid, like 20 years old. Like, they're like, you need to learn communication skills and how to work with people that are, in high stress situations, or they're not happy with you, or how do you come to a break even, or, so started there. And I also went to go to school at St. Cloud part-time. Only went to school for another semester, took a bunch of electives, and it was kind of funny. The electives I did take were not related to law enforcement at all. I ended up taking like acting and like speech and stuff, because I was so bad at speech, and I was like, maybe this will help. And
That's brave. I mean, that is really putting yourself out there.
Yeah, it was.
It's not easy.
Acting was kind of fun, but at the same time, like, I didn't realize what I was getting myself into, and I was like, wow, I'm on stage. I didn't think I thought this would be different.
I love doing these podcasts with you. I learn something every time.
Yeah. So I went to school for just a semester, I believe, or two, and then just went full-time into Sherburne. I worked there for 3 years, and as I was working there, this is where I kind of started to expand on like different jobs that I wanted to try. I had met some good friends and learned about online, like, drop shipping and like business and marketing, and I was watching all these YouTube videos, and I had learned so much from YouTube about flipping logos. So I would sell logo designs on like Craigslist or Facebook or something, and then go and hire someone on like Fiverr for like $5, but then I was selling them for like $250. So like I was like, oh, this is a sweet gig. Like,
Who knew that was a thing?
There was, all you had to do was be the manager of it. Like, find the client, get the work done. I mean, just as every business does, but there was just different ways to go about it. And I was like, wow, I mean, this works. I'm getting paid just as much as my full day here, like flipping. So I was doing that. And then I got introduced to videography, started doing real estate stuff. And after a few shows and concerts, one of my buddies, Sam, had moved. We've been doing work back and forth from Nashville with Jimmy Allen, and we're doing like these concerts and these shows, and we're like, this is really fun. We could probably do this full time. And I was like, all right, where are we gonna leave our job that has given us benefits and that we went to school for? And it's like, now I'm in this center road of pressure from my parents. They're like, you're gonna quit? And I'm like, well, hang on. Like, I am only 20 some years old. Like, I want to try something new. I can always come back to this. Like, this is a great foundation. I appreciate everything you guys have done for me, but I want to try this. And if it doesn't work, I can always come back. But if I can't try this later when I have kids or house are like more pressure on your shoulders, more responsibility. I want to take these opportunities now. And I went for it, went and started my own business and worked for free actually quite a bit with, I just surrounded myself with people that were doing things I wanted to be doing. So I was doing a lot of free work, learning how to run a company, how to do video, how to edit, how to color grade, all this stuff that you needed to run a video production company. I was working with somebody, Angel Telemontes, with Click Leads Local. He was working with companies to, push their branding and all this stuff. So as I was doing that, I still needed to make more money. So I went to school one of our clients was a real estate insurance broker. So I was working with them with their social media, and they're like, "Hey, you ever thought about like just selling insurance?" And I was like, "Sure, why not? I've done all this other stuff. Like, let's try selling insurance too." So like, all right, we'll send you to school. Went to schooling for a couple months, and then became a property and casualty licensed agent in Minnesota, and then was selling insurance there, and then moved half part-time with that and part-time with my own business. And then finally at one day they were just like, "Hey, do maybe you should try doing it all on your own." And I'm like, "Yeah," because I was leaving so much, and after you get so busy, it was hard to do both. And then that's when I went fully 100% on my own, and it's where I'm at now, is just Kidsman Creations I've done everything from websites to podcasts to video production,
senior pictures,
tons of weddings. But yeah, quite a long path of trying different things and finding what I didn't like came really helpful. And then with schooling and the different jobs, I've learned a lot of personable skills to talk with people, or how to handle situations with clients, or just a lot of things. But I always encourage people that don't know what they're doing, or maybe get frustrated with something. It's okay if something doesn't work. If you fail at something, you can learn from it and keep going. Otherwise, just take that information to your next job or
Exactly.
opportunity.
You can always use that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Were you two in the high school at the same time?
No.
As teacher, student, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
teacher, student. That's what I was wondering. Yeah.
Yes. I don't know. Did I ever have you as a student?
I don't remember.
I don't think I did.
No. I don't remember actually a lot of my teachers.
Hmm.
Yeah. Sorry.
No kidding.
Okay, the one I do is Kenny. I forgot his first name.
Kinney?
Mr. Kinney.
Mr.
Steve.
Kenny. Steve. Because he was always playing Black Betty in the
Yes.
classroom and all these great songs. And to this day, I still have those memorized.
Oh, he played Hotel California
Mm-hmm.
when I had him all the time, right before we did current events.
But
Yeah, current events. Yep.
those stuck in my head though. That and Hayes and Paddock and
The football guys.
yeah. Well,
Industrial
wrestling.
tech area.
yeah. I mean, Hayes was actually part of my life for so long though, from football practice from middle school all the way to this day. I still am in contact with him.
Oh,
so,
really?
mhm.
That's nice.
Cool.
Yeah. What about you guys?
Well, should I go? Okay. I have done a lot of things, I guess, when I'm thinking about all yours. It reminded me of some that I had done. So I graduated in 1988, and from there I went to NDSU in Fargo. So I was nearby you.
Yes.
And I went there for a couple of years for journalism, for print journalism. And so I was going to be a newspaper reporter. I had done that in high school. We had a newspaper when I was in high school. I don't think they do anymore.
No, the Fourth Estate.
The
It
Fourth
was so
Estate, yes.
awesome.
Also known as the Tiger Tails,
Is that what it started on as?
back in the 60s.
Were you on the Tiger Tail staff?
Oh, no.
No. Okay. And so I really enjoyed that. And so I ended up going to NDSU for that. And it was just, once I got into the major, it was so easy that I thought, I don't think this is the right school for this, as I just felt it should be more challenging. And so I ended up at St. Cloud State to finish up my degree there. And from there, I moved out to Colorado just for the heck of it. just my friend of mine and I decided this is the time, like you were talking, this is the time to go on an adventure. And so I moved out there. My parents have said they thought that I'd probably never move back once I moved out there. And while I was out there, I started looking for a job in this field. And while I was looking, I realized I kind of didn't want it. Like, I kind of hoped I didn't get one. And I just thought, I don't think this is what I want to do. And so I ended up going back to school in Greeley, Colorado, and I got a teaching license, a secondary teaching license for English. And so I ended up, we got married and then decided we wanted to be back near our family again before we started having our own family. So, because I ended up marrying someone who also graduated from Princeton, who I met in Colorado. So it was kind of a weird, we never dated in high school or anything. We kind of met out there, which is very odd. And so we moved back to Princeton, and then, we moved back to Minnesota, I should say, and I ended up getting a job teaching in Bram. And so I taught there for 4 years, and I was pregnant with my second child and had him in May at the very end of the school year. And then realized that all of my entire paycheck was going to daycare. And I just thought, this is crazy. So I decided to stay home with the kids after that. And while I was at home and I think Adam was 6 months, I decided to go to grad school for English. And so I went to grad school when they were very young, and I got my master's in English. And I was thinking that I might teach at the college level, not professor, but just some intro classes. And while in grad school, that's something we had to do, was teach. And so we each had it was kind of a, I don't remember what they called it, but it was kind of a level for kids coming in as freshmen that really struggled in English. And so those were the classes that we were assigned to teach. And I was teaching it, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is like teaching 10th grade. There's literally nothing different from this. These kids don't want to be here. They hate English, And so I thought, I don't think teaching is the thing for me. And during that time in grad school, I met somebody who ended up working up at the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe as a grant writer, and she invited me to come and work up there part-time, and I did, and I really enjoyed it. I liked the writing aspect. I liked the kind of the persuasion. I found that I was using my journalism degree because I had to interview people about the program that I was writing a grant about. And I really, really liked it. And so I felt like I kind of found a niche there. And then I ended up working at a nonprofit in Princeton where I could use those skills. And fundraising and marketing was part of my job, so I kind of had to learn that on the fly. And then that nonprofit ended up closing. And that's when I did what you did, is thought about going on my own as a grant writer. And I remember having that conversation with you, and I had kind of a similar conversation where my parents are kind of like, are you sure about this? Because we did have kids. And so, but my husband had a job where he carried the insurance, and we just felt like, yeah, I could probably do it on my own. And I was very, very busy as a grant writer for quite a while. And then COVID hit, and it just, actually right before COVID, I was still grant writing, but then this job became available at the chamber. And so I was going to do a little bit of both, but then once COVID hit, grant writing just kind of went away. And so this job as the chamber director, I think one of my friends said, I feel like this is the job that you were meant to do. And even though it was later in my life, I certainly, am never going to put in 40 some years here. I really use all of my education at this job. With journalism, with English, I do a lot of writing. With teaching, I do a lot of, I get in front of people and have to do things like that. So I really use all of those degrees. So I guess my message would be that it's okay to switch and go down different paths. And no education is bad education. But, when you were talking to Zach about, it made me think about experience, and they wanted a degree when you went to Duluth.
Yep.
I feel like more and more experiences, it's shifting back to that, where experience is really being given a higher value. You might not have a college degree, but you have X number of years of experience doing this.
Because I had worked, what blew my mind is I had worked with certain gangs. I had worked with people that with high level, like, like clearance levels. I had done all this stuff, and like no one that went through a 4-year degree would know any of this,
Right.
Or like have the understanding and
Did you say gangs?
gangs. Yes,
Like gangs?
working with like
As a corrections officer.
yeah. So like we had classification. We had to like we had to know what tattoos these were, and like we had to go through this interview process, and there was other things I weren't proud of that I had to do, like when people come in, you have to strip them and check everything. But like, yeah, all these experiences that you wouldn't necessarily pick up on if you were just fresh out of a 4-year degree. But those are, I won't, like you said though, 4 years or any education isn't bad education. Like
No.
there's skills too that in that 4-year degree that they might pick up on that I would never, like certain interview, I don't know, it's just.
But again, it brings me back to the academies because you're getting both. I mean, you're getting that hands-on experience, and I'm so glad the school district is going in that direction and kind of getting out of the classroom a little bit more.
Yeah.
They should start one for corrections, get kids in there.
That would fall into our Human Services Academy.
Yes, exactly.
So, any students who are interested in going into law enforcement or corrections or anything,
That would be an eye-opener.
I'm sure it would be. I mean, you mentioned gangs, so I don't know.
Yeah. But even, Dad, do you think that a degree is required now in the banking industry, or?
Well, it's interesting. Just last week, and I think it was on one of the channels in the national news, was discussing this, that a lot of large companies now are not requiring degrees. And I think it's because they're looking, there's so many job opportunities available out there that this is really something different and pretty unique. Back when I first started at the bank, for instance, those kinds of things don't happen a lot anymore. Where you, and now they're saying that we'll train you.
They prefer.
You come in, you come in, you apply, we'll look at your application, we'll look at your resume, and we'll train you if we think you're the one that's going to do it, have a future with our company.
Actually, in talking to a lot of the business leaders in the Princeton area, I have heard from multiple of them saying things like, we want the students to come in with these soft skills. We can train them in the industry standards, but the soft skills, we can't teach someone those things. They either have them or they don't.
Right.
So developing them throughout childhood and into high school is a really good thing so that you do have those. Because, the businesses can train you.
That's right.
But like you said, Zach, no education is bad education.
Yes.
Right.
Because you used your education, too, that you had at Bemidji.
Absolutely.
It wasn't that you, and even now, my kids are in college, and they have to take the generals, and they complain about the generals, but then, they'll say something about, I'm trying to think of what the one, I think it was the, some kind of a disease class that Caleb's taking, and he's like, I can't believe I have to take this for information technology. And although, and did you know that? And he starts telling me all the stuff he's learning about this, and it's like, okay, Caleb, this is why. It gives you a well-rounded education, and you're learning.
Right.
And so it's interesting.
Even my acting class, I had still used that in the jail. I had found a way, like communicating or acting in some like forms. That was like, man,
Right.
I remember like I could use this in this scenario, like acting in a certain way, or like either coming down to another level or coming up, or I don't know. There was-
Exactly. Who was your acting teacher?
I don't know.
Remember, he doesn't remember his teachers.
I remember the information. It was just theirs was I don't know.
I was maybe Howard Valancourt wasn't teaching anymore then.
Well, you took acting in college, not in high school, right?
Correct.
Oh, in college.
College.
Oh, I thought
don't
you
think
did it.
Mr. Valancourt
No.
was there. I did have
I
Mr.
thought, yeah.
Valancourt for drama, though, in high
So
school.
did I. Yep.
I don't know if it was for drama, but I had him for. He was an English teacher, right?
yeah.
I can talk a little bit about my path. Back when I was in high school, it was just a push for a 4-year school. Like, you need to get a bachelor's. Like, no matter what. I remember going through high school thinking, I'm for sure going to college because that's what we're supposed to do. Like, that is the next step. So I appreciate that the schools now are not pushing that. They're pushing the 2-year or the 4-year or go right to the workforce.
Getting certificates.
Yeah,
Yes.
the trades are so in need of people right now. So I think that is great. But my experience was that I was going right to college. So in high school, I was so focused on sports and friends, and I wasn't really thinking about what I wanted to do. And so when I went to college, I went to Mankato, and I remember trying to register for classes, and all of the generals were filled. So as a freshman, I had to pick my major as a freshman. And so I had no idea. And it was basically flipping through a book and being like, yep, that sounds good. So communication disorders is what my bachelor's degree is in. I've never used that before. I use all the knowledge, and I would never regret going to school for 4 years. It was a great experience. You're meeting new people, your independence. You're learning so many different things, but it was all the generals and stuff like you said, and the overall education. And then when I graduated, I was applying for jobs, and still at that time, it was as long as you have a 4-year degree. They didn't really care what it was in. So my first job, I worked for Target Financial Services as a fraud investigator, with a communications disorders degree. Like nothing to do with one another. But the reason I got in, so to speak, was the 4-year degree. And it's, everything was online applications. And that was if you didn't have that 4-year degree on your resume in the application, you don't even you're not considered at all. So super thankful for that. And then after Target, I went to be an insurance agent.
Hey-o.
Yeah, property and casualty life. Yes, Zach, we are so much alike, and now we're doing the same thing and working together. But in that,
So what kind of car is it? Is it 2002? Yeah.
VIN number. Give me that VIN number.
Yeah. Actually, I think we can actually save you 25% less with.
Yes. Now go buy a house, and then your auto insurance will be cheaper.
Actually, if we bundle these, well, we can actually save a lot more. Do you have any vehicles, like any boats in that garage of yours?
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
What year is your roof? Anyway, I was there for probably
Don't worry,
6,
John, I'll be out there
7
tomorrow.
yeah, 6, 7, 8 years. And what I learned in that position was I loved working with people. I loved the people for that job. After that, I went to the school. A position had opened up. Well, actually, I was recruited to come in and coach by the athletic director to coach volleyball. And I had thought, I'd never thought about coaching. That had never crossed my mind, which is odd because I am a huge sports fanatic. And so I'll never forget the day I got that call. Glenn Klopp Hockey was the AD at that time. And he said, would you be interested in applying for the head varsity coach? And I thought, let me call you back. Like, I really had to think about it. And me thinking about it is like calling all my parents and my sisters and what should I do this? And so that was my first job at the district. And then when I was hired for there, that's when I got the job in early childhood, which ironically, I used my communication disorders degree because I was the screening coordinator. And again, working with families, working with parents. And then my job changed, or I should say it evolved. And then I was the parent coordinator, program coordinator. So I helped find new classes for ECFE and parents, and I suggested, this is what you should be doing, or this is what your options are. You can start, from birth to 5. It was just really fun working with parents, and I sat in my office, my phone rang all day with questions, and I just loved working with the families, working with the entire district, and from there I got into marketing, and, that was when the social media, during that span of the 10 years that I worked at the district, social media became a thing. So we were developing our Facebook pages, and everything was going online, and it was all marketing. So my job had shifted mostly to marketing. And so that's where I am today. And I thought, I can do this on my own. And so now I own my own business, and Zach and I do a lot of marketing together on the side for other businesses, and it's great. We have such a variety of things that we do, and now we're doing a podcast and working with people. Being part of the chamber. So all of these experiences are just, and like I said, I had my certificate for insurance. after I got my bachelor's degree, I went to school for nursing, and then I thought, well, maybe I want to be a nurse. So then, other things just kept falling into my lap that I did not plan. And so I have all this experience, and now I'm finally like, this is what I want to do. This is what I was meant to be. But I wouldn't be here without all of everything else that happened prior to that. I don't think I would be here. And now I'm 43 years old and finally decided what I want to do when I grow up. And I think that's okay.
Yeah, only 20 years later, you'll figure it out. Like, don't worry about it.
I mean,
right
honestly,
now.
what does it matter? And I was going to say too, Mary, that when you were going to college, the job you have today didn't exist.
Right.
So how could you have ever known you were going to do this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And now it's huge.
Now it's huge. Yep.
Yeah.
So, Dad, what would you give high school juniors and seniors, sophomores, high school students? What kind of advice would you give them? Or if you were, you give yourself advice if you could give yourself advice when you were that age.
Well, I think number one, if you really, really, really know what you want to do, if you really know what occupation is going to be, that's it. That's what I want to do. There's trade schools that you can go to, or now the opportunity is out there for you to go to one of these businesses and just make application and let them train you. So that's number one. But that doesn't include a whole lot of people.
Right.
I know that you can go to college for 3 years and maybe still don't know really what you want to do. You may graduate from college and have a degree and still question that. So, but you will always use those skills that you've been given throughout those 4 years. And high school is the same way. I mean, kids think about high school. But every day that you go to high school, you probably learn something, which is really, really important. So there's so many different paths that kids can take today. And it's kind of scary. I mean, it's been scary for many, many years. But even today, I think even more so. So I guess my advice would be to do what you really want to do. If it's a 4-year college you want to go. If it's a 2-year trade school you want to go. If you know what you want to do, talk to your folks, talk to your friends, talk to your teachers, and ask them what they think about it. So, yeah, I guess that would be my advice.
I think it's really important. And now with the Academies and the YST program, you can get this experience before
Right.
you actually decide if you want to go to college. And even my oldest has changed majors, I think 3 times, and he just keeps, the tough part for him is he enjoys a lot of things. And so now he's kind of trying to figure out, that's another thing, how could you combine those, things that you really like to do into a job? Because it probably is out there, it exists.
And I think now it's common to change your major. I mean, I think so. I remember when I was in school, it was not, I would not have dreamed of changing majors because I was already so, my first 2 years I was into those classes, and I thought, well, I'm not going to change now. I'm going to have to go for 2 more years or whatnot. But it's okay. It's okay to change. I have a senior right now, and he does not know he's applied to colleges. He's been accepted. He just is so up in the air and just not sure what he wants to do. And I said, Jake, that is okay. If you want to take a year to decide, that is okay. If you want to go to a 4-year school and just start with your generals and not know still, you still have to take those generals.
Right.
That's okay. You can go to school and not know what you're going to do. It's okay. All of this is okay. I ran into somebody at a volleyball tournament this weekend, a PHS alumni. He's only a couple years older than I am, and he still works at the job he had in high school. And he said he has been working there for 30 some years, and he's in his 40s. He works he's at Crystal.
Okay.
And I thought, wow, he kind of has the same story a little bit like you, Dad, but he started there probably when he was 15, and he is still there. I'm not sure exactly what age he is, but I thought, wow, that's really saying something. And that, that's a big business right here in Princeton. There's so many opportunities for kids to go and work. And kudos to the high school for getting these kids out into those businesses and to know about them. I mean, when we were in high school, I don't think I knew much about opportunities in Princeton other than the hospital where Mom worked and the bank where my dad worked. I mean, otherwise, we didn't really know about anything.
Yeah, I think that I knew teaching because my mom did daycare for mainly teachers. So I was like,
sure.
daycare or teachers or a meat cutter like my dad. But yeah, so I definitely feel the same. And it's been even eye-opening for me now going out and visiting businesses and seeing all of the opportunities. I mean, I had no idea. There were so many opportunities to be an engineer, for example, right in Princeton.
Right.
Or think about all of these big companies that have people that commute to Princeton. These, these companies, and I think, I know that GMI has a lot of Princeton people, but they also have a lot of people that drive to Princeton. When you think about, okay, I'm going to live in Princeton, but I'm going to commute to the cities because that's going to be where I'm going to get a good paying jobs in the cities. Well, we have people that are coming to Princeton for that same reason. So, work here, work here. Just getting that out there, that the opportunity is here and you don't have to commute, and they are really good jobs with good benefits. And
Mary, that's a nice segue maybe for this. I started at the bank in Princeton in 1979, and I retired there in 2016. So I worked there for 43 years. My oldest brother, started in Princeton in the grocery business when he was 16 years old. He retired in the grocery business in Princeton. He worked there all his life.
His only job.
His only job.
yeah.
My middle brother worked in auto parts, the auto parts industry, out in the industrial park. Started when he was 16 years old. He ended up staying in the auto part business in Princeton. He owned his own auto parts store. And that's where he retired from.
Yep.
So we have, my two brothers and myself, all three of us only had one job all our lives, and it was in Princeton. And now, you're working in Princeton. You're working in Princeton. I have another daughter that works for Sherburne County, so that's close to Princeton. And then another daughter that is a pediatric nurse practitioner that started working at Fairview in Princeton and now is in St. Cloud. But all four of my daughters live in Princeton. They've blessed us with 11 grandchildren who all are graduating from Princeton High School. So my wife and I, we just feel so blessed. And this is a great community. It's a great community.
It really is.
When you think about the industrial park out here, for the size of town that Princeton is, and the opportunities in the industries that are available out there, the healthcare system that we have in Princeton, the school system that we have in Princeton, the parks and recreation. I mean, you really can't ask for more in a small town. And Mary, you were talking about people saying, I'm going to live in Princeton, but I'm going to commute to the cities. When you think about that, you think about the hour or hour and a half drive one way, the hour and a half drive coming home. That's 2 to 3 hours a day. That's pretty much wasted time.
Unless they're listening to this podcast.
Right.
And they're like, I need to get a job in Princeton.
Or the expense involved in that, the gas. And, it's just, you got to think about all of that. And those opportunities are probably available right here.
Yep.
Oh, for sure. They are. They're available right here.
You just have to seek them out.
And if you're in high school, you can do so through Mrs. Sorensen. Is everyone hearing that? High school students?
Yes, you can find me in the Media Center or room 229.
There we go.
Jacob Patnode.
Well, yeah, I thought this was great information. Hopefully some of the students will take some time to listen to this and maybe take it to heart that everything that you do in your life is education, whether it's school or learning different skills, things that you don't think you'll ever use, like acting. You can always apply them somewhere. So,
I think that listening to everyone, I think the biggest thing is open yourself up to as many experiences as possible.
Yep. That's a great way to end. Open up yourself to experiences.
Yep.
All right. Well, one more thing to add to that. I would say opening yourself up to new experiences, but also surround yourself with people that are going to bring you up or are doing something that you want to be a part of or
That's a very good point.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because in all my experiences, I've always found myself in a group of people that were either better at me or doing something that I wanted to be doing. And I see it in other groups of people or people that have been successful or just happy with what they're doing, and they just find themselves around certain people.
That's right.
And just surround yourself with good people would be my advice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. It was super awesome to hear all these great stories. Thank you for everyone for listening. Big shout out to our sponsors, Princeton Public Schools. And I believe we'll be back again with our other podcast April 11th. Yeah. Sweet. So until then, this is Zach and Mary and Kim signing off.
Podcast produced by Kitzman Creations, music by Charles Moe. Be sure to subscribe to the Princeton Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Also, to view our awkward moments, check us out on our YouTube channel and visit us at www.thisisprincetonmn.co.